Okay, we're buffering again. What the Okay, well...
I was saying I don't have any stories I could think of right now, but if I think of one, I'll text you and let you know, and then I'll call you back or whatever.
Sweet. Well, I was going to say, don't call me back on my phone number. Call me back at 335-9596. Do you have a
pen? Give me 1 second.
Is 335-9596.
9596.
Jeez.
All right, awesome. I love you, Mom.
I love you too. Is Gabe or his roommate still awake?
Oh yeah, me and Riley are playing video games. Gabe's not home yet, though.
Well, ask Riley if he has any ghost stories he wants to share real quick. Say, my mom wants to know.
Stories you like to share, Riley? For her radio show.
I mean, not right off the top of my head. There's a couple of them, but it would take... I don't know. I'm not prepared for this.
Here, we will call you back.
He's not prepared.
At that number, and we will be more prepared.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool beans. All right, well, I love you.
All right,
you guys
I love
have
you,
fun.
Mom.
Bye, Riley.
You too.
All right.
She said bye, Riley.
Bye.
All right. Poor Kinsey. She is in her 3rd trimester. So her little fella, okay, so she used to be a volleyball superstar. Now that she's in her 3rd trimester, he's pushing up on her ribs, and she did sustain a rib injury during volleyball, and I guess he kicked that rib back out of place, so that's been a hard thing. And then, they have those tales, wives' tales or whatnot about if you have a lot of heartburn, your kid's going to be, have a pretty full head of hair. So, I don't know if that's true or not. Lily, she had the fullest head of hair of any of my kids, and I don't remember having a lot of heartburn with her, but yeah. I hope she rests well. Man, I wish I would have called her in the first hour, because holy shnikes. I would have loved to hear her perspective on that. I'm going to message her really quick and tell her, if Kinsey wakes up, have her call me. Yeah, Kinsey's ghost stories are pretty creepy. Baby E and Mommy E, etc. If you haven't heard it before, shortly after I first got with Vern, it was me and Kinsey against the world, and met Vern, totally fell in love, decided to move into a certain place, and he's like, hey, you don't have to move in there, you can move in with me. And so we moved into this A-frame, and her room was always colder than any room. Even like during the winter, we'd pull up and you could see the beams going across the A-frame, and her room was always frozen over, and all the other rooms you could see the heat coming from them, even the bathroom. So that was pretty freaky. She used to be assaulted basically, like mentally, every night by Baby E and Mommy E. Mommy E would make her be really quiet, have all the lights out so Baby E could sleep. She used to get on to us for being loud. She's like, you guys need to be quiet, because if you don't be quiet, Mommy E is going to be mad because you're going to wake up Baby E. And she used to talk about the long, like, sharp fingers coming over the head of her bed, like, reaching towards her and such. And she'd also, like, close her room. Not only would she have the lights off, but she would close the door to her room. It was so freaky. And then eventually she was assaulted by Mommy E. I guess she said she remembers being at the top of the stairs, and She used to be obsessed with these little frogs, which are my favorite. I love frogs. But they were these little frogs we'd get out of the little quarter machine at Walmart. And she said she came out and she saw at the bottom of the stairs one of those little frogs. And all of a sudden, something kicked her off the stairs. And I swear to God, we're sitting down there watching movies, and all of a sudden, we see Kinsey cartwheeling through the air down towards the bottom of the stairs. She did not hit any stair on the way down until she hit the bottom of the stairs. And so immediately I'm like, she seems okay, but we need to take her to the ER right now. Luckily, she was okay. But after that, we didn't have her sleep in that room anymore. We had her sleep downstairs. And it was just really freaky. I remember one night, well, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember being woken up by my husband as I'm trying to get out of the window at the head of our bed. So I woke up and I said, no, no, no. And I ran towards the head of our bed, and I was just going to run full-fledged out of the window, off of the balcony, down a cliff, and probably to my death. But luckily, Vern woke up and stopped me, because I might be dead right now and not doing this show. But that was pretty crazy. She used to say that Baby E climbed a tree and fell and died. And Mommy E was sad, so Mommy E died to be with Baby E. And Mommy E looked like she was in the bathtub for too long. And she was about 2 years old at this time, so that was pretty freaky coming from a little kid. Plus all the other stuff I stated before. Man, I wish she wasn't sleeping right now, but we eventually lost that house to foreclosure and moved into this house, where we had another haunting by the guy named John. He died from emphysema here. But he's a totally cool, really good guy and has never really caused any issues. He has scared the kids a couple times, and even my littles have seen him. Lily was like, it was either Lily or Floyd, Mom, I saw this old man and he was messing with the thermostat. He was trying to get it to work, and we haven't used our natural gas in a couple years now, so it no longer works, so I think he was trying to fix it to make it work. But it's pretty intriguing what the heck goes on the other side. Like, why? Why do you need the heat to work? Does it really matter to you? You're dead right now. But yeah, it was pretty interesting what happened there, and all the different energies and such. My husband actually had a sword fight with these ghosts because he saw his mom and other members of his family being pushed up against the roof of the house, and he was trying to fight off these spirits to get it to stop. But on that note, we are going to go to our book. In the third hour, we're going to call Cheyenne and get her perspective on last night's paranormal investigation. But this story is Famous Magicians of History, from the book of 50 Strange Stories of the Supernatural. So, we'll start off where we left off last time on Storytime. So despite Kelly's undoubted powers of a seer, through the medium of Uriel, he had foreseen Mary Queen of Scots kneeling on a scaffold and had described the Armada. 7 years before it gathered against the welfare of England, he was in fact a minor crook, having been pilloried for forgery and also charged with digging up a dead body for the purpose of necromancy. When Dee eventually discovered all of this, there was quite a scene, but St. Michael, conveniently for Kelly, appeared to tell Dee that he must continue to employ Kelly. The association continued, but it was almost a trouble one, for Dee was a truly learned, otherworldly man. While Kelly, was neurotic, even violent, and quite prepared to cook the evidence to his own advantage. Nevertheless, there is no doubt that the two men together produced a great deal of genuine psychic phenomenon. Eventually, Kelly went too far. Dee, with his wife and family, and accompanied by Kelly and his wife, had accepted an invitation from the Count Palatinate of Saradia of Poland, or in Poland. Unfortunately, the Count was enthusiastic but poor, and their attempts to interest other great men in the attempts of Dee to find the Philosopher's Stone through the medium of Kelly and the crystal failed. Kelly threatened to return to England, and quarrels abounded. The group had settled in Bohemia under the patronage of Count Rosenberg when Kelly announced that a spirit called Madame had announced that they must share everything, including wives. Unlike Kelly, Dee was devoted to his wife, and she to him, and the suggestion caused a good deal of alarm and many prayers for guidance. When a second consultation of the crystal confirmed the instruction, Dee decided to take the order as intended, mutual love rather than physical action, and Kelly, furious and frustrated, took his threatened departure. John Dee, with his family, returned to England and to his experiments, but he was still troubled by the superstitious fears of the ordinary people. After the Queen's death, James I dismissed him from his post as court astrologer on the grounds that he was an ally of Satan. Dee was furious and, although he was 80, insisted on being tried for witchcraft. James, perfectly well aware that any such hearing would only establish Dr. Dee's innocence, retracted. And when John Dee died, a year or so later, he was indeed described by a neighbor as a mighty good man. Over a century later, however, superstition was still rife, and it was easy for unscrupulous to prey on the beliefs even of the well-educated. Giuseppe Balsamo, better known as, probably self-styled, Count Alessandro di Cagliostro, was a grocer's son who spent his early years wandering around Europe as a jobbing artist. He always had a genuine interest in alchemy, astrology, and various forms of magic, and although he was undoubtedly also a cheat, ably assisted by his beautiful young wife, one story that is told of him is said to be well authenticated. Visiting an independent principality south of the Gulf of Riga, he used the younger son of the principality's chamberlain, Count von der Hauen, as his medium in the demonstration of scrying, or crystal ball gazing. A globe-shaped carafe was filled with pure water and placed between two candles. Gazing into it, the boy saw his sister clutching her breast as if in pain. Then he saw the girl embracing her soldier brother. At the time, the chamberlain's daughter was in excellent health, and his son was away on active service. But when he got home, Count van der Hauen found that his son had inexplicably come home on leave. While at the time of the scrying, the girl had suffered a severe pain in her chest. It is also said that Cagliostro made many true prophecies, including the death of Marie Antoinette and, in detail, of her companion, the Princess de Lamballe. De Lamballe? I think it's de Lamballe. Like Nostradamus, he too predicted many of the horrors of the French Revolution and the eventual rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Other tales are told of Cagliostro's powers, but since much of his reputation can be traced to the gullibility of fashionable society, while he made a fortune in selling his elixir of immortal youth, many of these can be discounted. His luck didn't last. He was involved in the notorious diamond necklace scandal in 1785 and was thrown into the Bastille. England offered him no haven, for he was imprisoned in the Fleet, and he eventually ended his life in the fortress prison of San Leone in Italy, where he was incarcerated for life for being a Freemason. Really? I never heard it. Well, yeah, I did. They actually ran away and hid in different places and carved different things in walls, so on and so forth, because they were being hunted, because people didn't like that they were not giving them money. Okay, so Cagliostro, perhaps, brings the reputation of all these wise men into disrepute. but it is probable that he did indeed have some supernormal powers, which he bolstered with a great deal of conjuring. Others, however, despite the overlay of superstition and ignorance of their times, undoubtedly possess strange gifts and were adepts in the magic arts. Ew, that means we're at the end of the story and I get to do the lightning bolt. Yay! So the next story is Prophets and Doom. Let me see how holy shnikes. We could get through this before the next hour. Let's say we shall. Prophets and Doom. The ability to foresee the future is a fact. There is no question of illusion or coincidence. There is as yet no known explanation as to why some people can see into the future at will, why others have occasional involuntary glimpses and others never see at all. Premonitions, precognition, prophetic dreams are all a form of divination which centuries ago was taken for granted and which today is once again recognized as a science and a fact for which modern experience have as yet provided no answer. The facts of prediction of the future, said the late Dr. Alexis Carrel, Nobel Prize winner, physiologist and biologist, led us to the threshold of an unseen world. They seem to point to an existence of a psychic principle capable of evolving outside the limits of our bodies. It is, however, an inexact science. Why some people should have the power more than others, or why the power cannot be turned on or off at will, or even be guaranteed to work properly, nobody knows. However, parapsychological research has established without doubt that some kind of extra sense does exist in man, which cannot be measured nor limited by the ordinary laws of space and time. The use of the word prophet to describe a person who foretells the future is, in fact, incorrect, for the ancient prophets were actually interpreters who revealed or explained the meanings of the word of gods or of God. However, the utterances of these prophets included so much that predicted the future that the meaning of the word eventually became charged. There are various means by which divination is carried out, by the use of a crystal ball or mirror, through the casting of a horoscope, or through dreams or omens. Sometimes the future appears as a vivid picture. Sometimes it is formless, a vague precognition of disaster. Although it has been recognized that the more one can eliminate the interference of the conscious mind, the more one can achieve the necessary rapport with the subconscious, or the mysterious sixth sense. Many experiments have failed to reveal just who or why this happens. Throughout history, there have been famous soothsayers. The ancient Egyptians, Romans, and Greeks believed wholeheartedly in soothsayers and oracles and, it would not be too much to say, ran their lives around their advice. Wherever civilization has been interested in magic and religion of any kind, there has been a firm belief in the powers of those who could see into the future. The stories of correctly fulfilled prophecies are so numerous that they would fill many volumes. One of the greatest diviners, Nostradamus, whose life is detailed in another part of this book, first became aware of his gift for prophecy through odd incidents which occurred when he was a young man. In Italy, for example, he encountered a young monk, Felice Peretti. son of peasant parents from a neighboring village. To the amusement of the onlookers, Nostradamus fell to his knees in the dusty road, greeting him as Holy Father. 40 years later, Peretti became pope. The most commonly experienced glimpses into the future usually arrive in the form of warnings. For some reason, perhaps because the power of the unconscious force is not urgent enough, one rarely hears predictions of happy events or of such useful items as to what will win the Derby. On the other hand, premonitions of disaster have saved lives on many occasions. One of the best known modern we're buffering again. Oh my god. Nothing could avert it. Mrs. Dixon has made many other prophecies. She told Winston Churchill that he would lose office after the war but come back to power again, and she predicted the date of his death. She foresaw many intentional events and many tragedies, including the deaths of Dag Hammarskjöld and Marilyn Monroe. Alright, let me go over here and copy this and send it in Messenger because perhaps his Facebook has made many chill that he would lose office after the war. Holy shit. Mrs. Dixon has made many other prophecies. She told Winston Churchill that he would lose office after the war, but come back to power again. And she predicted the date of his death. She foresaw many international events and many tragedies, including the deaths of Dag Hammarskjöld and Marilyn Monroe. In the past 3, there seem to have been many more dedicated prophets than there are now. Or perhaps the stress of modern life detracts too much the contemplative mind. One of the most famous British prophets was Conich Adar Fiosace, who became known as the Bron Seer and who was a Highland Scot. His gift of the sight was widely known even among a people to whom second sight is not unusual, and he foretold many strange things, such as the coming of railways, long strings of carriages without horses, which in the 17th century he could not possibly have imagined. Conich Oder, a farm laborer, was said to have used a small round stone with a hole in it through which he saw the future. He was continually consulted by all around, including the gentry, and it was his famous prophecy concerning the noble Seaforth family, which has become known as the doom of the Seaforths, which made him famous. It is said that the Countess of Seaforth, a jealous and domineering lady, sent for the seer to find out what her husband, the 3rd Earl, was up to. He had ostensibly gone to arrange some business in Paris, but nothing had been heard from him for some time, and his visit was being unduly protracted. Conich Oder, having put his stone to his eye, saw the absent Earl in a richly furnished room in which was sitting a beautiful young woman. The Earl, on being no fool and mindful of the traditional faith of the bearer of bad tidings, decided to say nothing, so reassured the Countess that her husband was perfectly well and happy, but his visit was likely to be even further prolonged. More he would not say, but the Countess, no doubt sensing he was hiding something from her, insisted and finally goaded Coinich by her suggestions that he could not in reality see anything at all, into describing the scene in the room to her detail. Unfortunately, he did not have the sense to insist on speaking to the Countess alone, and his revelations, eagerly absorbed by the bystanders, would be common knowledge within hours. Furious, the Countess called him a liar and a cheat who had sullied the name of the Earl, and insisted that he be arraigned for witchcraft. Such was the power of the Seaforth family that nobody could prevail against the Countess, and the wretched Coinich was executed by one of the means of dealing with witches, by being forced head first into a barrel of tar. That is terrible. Before he died, however, the seer pronounced the famous doom of the Seaforth family. I see, he said, into the far future, and I read the doom of the race of my oppressor and die mourning. The long-descended line of Seaforth will, ere many generations have passed, end in extinction and sorrow. I see a chief, the last of the house, both deaf and dumb. He will be the father of the 4 fair sons, all of whom he will follow to the tomb. He will live careworn and die mourning, knowing no future chief of his clan shall reign a Brehon or a Kintail. He himself shall sink into the grave of the remnant of his possessions, shall be inherited by a white-coiffed lassie from the east, and she shall kill her sister. A sign by which it may be known that these things are coming to pass shall be given by 4 great lairds in the days of the last deaf and dumb Seaforth. They shall be Gairloch, Crishom, Grant, and Ramsay, of whom one shall be buck-toothed, another hare-lipped, another half-witted, and the 4th stammerer. These shall be the allies and neighbors of the last Seaforth, and when he sees them at his side, he may know that his sons are doomed to death, that his broad land shall pass away to a stranger, and that his race shall come to an end. The seer died, but when the earl returned soon afterwards, he told his wife that every detail of what the prophet had seen was correct. In the sumptuous Paris house, he had been accompanied by the mistress of Charles II, Lucy Walters, the mother of the Duke of Monmouth. The pictures on the wall, the ornate gilded furniture, were all as the seer had described. The Earl of Seaforth himself lived to a ripe age and died in 1678. His wife, however, for whom the condemned man had foretold nothing, threw herself to her death from the tower of Brehon Castle. Several generations passed before the doom of the Seaforths began to be realized. In 1754, the man who was to be the last of the Seaforths was born. At the age of 15, an illness left him deaf, and later he also became dumb. The doom had not been forgotten, and the omens were looked for. 4 Scottish lairds lived nearby, and of these, Sir Hector Mackenzie of Gairloch was buck-toothed. The Laird of Chisholm had a hare-lip. Grant was half-witted, and MacLeod of Ramsay had a pronounced stammer. But Lord Seaforth had 6 daughters and 4 sons, and if the signs of impending doom were present, there was little he could do, in any case, to avoid it. The Earl raised a regiment which fought in the French Revolutionary Wars, and went about life in a normal way. Then one of his sons died in childhood. 2 others died later. When the last boy, who had a wasting disease, fell ill, the fears of the Seaforth family became a reality, and he was sent to the south of England to be treated by a specialist. Daily news of the young man's progress were brought north, but to the superstitious Scots there was no hope for his life. Whatever his parents might believe, for all the portents foretold by the seer were there. Sure enough, the boy died. In 1815, the Earl himself died, and the rest of the doom inexorably was fulfilled. The Earl's eldest daughter had married an admiral, Sir Samuel Hood, and had gone with him to the East India station, where he was in command. He died, however, at about the same time as the Earl, and his widow returned from the East, wearing a white cap decreed by the conventions of the time. Lady Hood continued to live at Bram Castle, and she eventually married again. Her husband, a Stuart, took the name of Mackenzie, since there were no males left to the Mackenzie family, but which much of the estate was sold for one reason or another, and the family's property much reduced. One would imagine that, with so much of the seer's prophecy fulfilled, Mrs. Stuart Mackenzie's sister would have given her a very wide berth indeed. But the final and perhaps most tragic part of the prophecy was to be duly completed. One day, Mrs. Stewart Mackenzie was driving her sister, Caroline, through the grounds of the estate in a pony carriage when, for some reason which was never discovered, the ponies took fright and bolted. The carriage overturned, and although Mrs. Stewart Mackenzie was merely badly shaken, her sister was so seriously injured that she died. 200 years after Corniche O'Dare Foisacci had foreseen it, the broad lands of Seaforth had indeed passed away to the stranger, and his race had come to an end. Another family came to an end over centuries in a manner foretold by a seer called Thomas the Rhymer. He predicted its end during the 20th century. The prophecy is described by Sir Bernard Burke in Ulster King at Arms, which was established in 1853. Thomas the Rhymer thus addressed the Earl of Mar: "Proud chief of Mar, thou shalt be raised still higher until thou sittest in the place of the king. Thou shalt rule and destroy, thy work shall be after thy name. But thy work shall be the emblem of thy house, and shall teach mankind that he who cruelly and haughtily raises himself upon the ruins of the holy counter prosper. Thy work shall be cursed and never finished, but thou shalt have riches and greatness, and shalt be true to thy sovereign, and shalt raise his banner in the field of blood. Then when thou seemest to be highest, where thy power is mightiest, thou shalt fall. Low shall thy head among the nobles of thy people. Deep shall thy moan among the cauldron of sorrow. Thy land shall be given to a stranger, and thy titles shall be among the dead. The branch that springs from thee shall see this dwelling burnt, in which a king is nursed, his wife a sacrifice in the same flame, his children numerous, but of little honor, and 3 born and grown, who shall never see the light. Yet shall thine ancient tower stand, for the brave and true cannot wholly be forsaken. Thy proud head and daggered hand must dree thy weird until horses shall be stabled in thy hall, and a weaver shall throw his shuttle in thy chamber of state. Thine ancient tower, a woman's dower, shall be a ruin and a beacon until an ash sapling shall spring from the topmost stone. Then shall thy sorrows be ended, and the sunshine of royalty shall beam on thee once more. Thine honors shall be restored. The kiss of peace shall be given to thy countess, though she seek it not, and the days of peace shall return to thee and thine. The line of Mar shall be broken, but not until its honors are doubled and its doom ended. 300 years later, the Earl of Mar was appointed regent of Scotland and guardian of the young King James I. He was a proud and domineering man who unscrupulously used his position to further his own ends and destroy his enemies. He began to build himself a palace in Stirling, which was locally known as Mar's Work, and it was never finished. A descendant who fought for the Stuart cause had his hands and his lands sequestered and his titles stripped from him after the pretender was defeated. Although a tower, a property brought into the family as the dowry of one of its brides, was burned down in the time of that Lord Mar's grandson, James Francis. His wife died in the fire, and he had 3 children, all of whom were born blind. The tower fell into decay, and during the French War, scare horses were stabled in the hall, and a weaver made a home in the ruins, while undergrowth, including an ash tree, grew out of stones. At last, in 1882, George IV restored the earldom of Mar to the original owner's descendants and bestowed on them the title of Earl of Mar and Kelly. As for the kiss of peace, it is said that Queen Victoria, meeting Lady Mar by chance in Stirling Castle, kissed her in a friendly manner. Oh, touché. Such resounding prophecies are not made today, but there is no lack of modern seers. Their predictions present a depressing similarity to the reader. Nostradamus, in his Centuries prediction, the coming of the third Antichrist in the last years of this century during a troublesome period which would be followed by peace. Jean Dixon, too, has foretold the appearance of an evil man born in the Middle East in 1962, who by force of arms will dominate the world in the last decades of the 20th century. Mario de Sabato, an Italian astrologer, predicts the dominance of Eastern races during the same period. From 1973 onwards, numerous seers have foretold an increasing chaos in the world. A breakdown of civilization, we know, the disintegration of Europe, and invasion by Eastern races. The papacy will be overthrown, the Pope will die a prisoner, and in the last decade of the century there will be a final war. By 1999, however, the epidemics, wars, natural catastrophes, and other cataclysms which are to plague the world will come to an end, and there will be the dawn of a new age of world peace, well-being, prosperity, and brotherly love. Let us hope that the prophets have lost their touch, for if they are right, we are in a foremost uncomfortable quarter of a century. So when they said that everything shall end and go to peace, then I remember the Middle East and then 9/11 and all this stuff that came shortly after. We're still in it, brothers and sisters, boys and girls. But on that note, we are going to go to our second break. We got Miss Mocha T from, I think it's Wisconsin. Hold on. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with My Life. We have Michaelan Hay from Ontario, Canada, as well as Fred Johnson III with After Dark. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
Life, the quality or state of being alive, a living organism, and I am Mocha T. Let's get it. My life, the sugar, honey, iced tea. They wonder why I smile so gracefully, and wonder why I like blue cheese. When I'm lactose, 10 toes, 10 fingers, nigga, 10 hoes. Flow dope, whip it, microwave and stove was broke. Broke days, broke weeks, even broke months. A rich don't have them going crazy. Lettuce and mac and cheese got them going crazy. Irregular, abnormal, and unusual. So unusual, I got shot for being beautiful. You can tell me love, you so gorgeous, but yet got a gun pointing to my forehead. Yolk head, break bread, yeah, we gon' feast. Remember the cold nights we had nothing to eat. Southern Belle raising hell area near you. I'm hungry and leaving no proof. My life, my life, my life. It ain't always sunshine in my life. A big puzzle, I'm trying to figure peace ain't right. They thought I wasn't gonna make it, I know they didn't. It's visual, check your vision if you got the issue. A news feed if you got the memo. Breaking news, a new wave coming. Fuck a wave, hurricane, so mocha-licious. I really do this, it's in my blood. Pass it to my kids when I have some. And that's hip-hop.
Shoulder cold, no one walked away without a scar. Talking on pins and needles, every word through a microscope. You keep stomping down on the ground while I've been stuck on this tightrope. I just wanna say what I wanna say without your sentence. I'm not willing to do the time when I'm innocent, and I'm innocent. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. Walked on my share of thin ice with your blowtorch at my feet. You won't ever see me beg, so take this tongue off your leash. I'm gonna say what I wanna say, don't need permission. Interpret it how you want, it's my decision. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. Dancing on shattered glass, kicking the pieces all around. My safety has been broken, this is now a hunting ground. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. take me to a college scene. I'd like to go and dance, have drinks, and hunt the perfect date. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, after dark, I gave her base because she had the range. I knew she was the one that never could go home again. Plastic life like limo seats. I don't know why I can't control this urge to hurt again. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Change in the sky, no matter what I say, after dark. Feeling meant to meant to feel. Behind a place with gifts of December. Concerning works furnished in the madness. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say, after dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, shades in the sky, murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Food and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say, after dark.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. So first hour, we discussed many different things, especially our paranormal investigation last night, but now I'm trying to get Cheryl, not Cheryl, I'm sorry, I got Cheryl in the head now. We got Miss Cheyenne Hogue, such a beautiful spirit, on the line, and she went paranormal investigating with me last night for the very first time for her. So I think I popped your paranormal cherry. How did it go for you? Like, what did you think?
It was awesome. I loved it. I had so much fun, especially at the end when we were trying to talk to Crystal.
I know, I got like so downtrodden and frustrated because I was like, holy shnikes, we're trying to get over here to the Anima City Cemetery, and then we tried Folsom Cemetery, and I'm thinking, Mr. Johnny Cash, Folsom, it's got to be a good cemetery. We could not get to either place because of houses, and it really kind of freaked me out, like, how can people build houses in these certain areas? And it makes me wonder if they have any sort of poltergeist or other creepy activity. I was getting kind of frustrated and I felt bad, but then we were cruising back roads and stuff, so it all seemed to work out. But what did you think? Like, did you enjoy the time too? And I was secretly hoping for something creepy to pop out of the side of the road. What did you think?
Oh my God, yes. It was so awesome. I had so much fun. And especially whenever I turned and I saw something by the tree and then I look away and it was gone when I looked back. I thought that was so cool.
That was towards the end, too. That's when, okay, I saw something white. It looked like a figure, and I was like, oh, my God. And then I looked away, like, towards you guys, and I was like, do you guys see that? And then I looked back again, and it was gone. And I was like, well, maybe it was that tombstone, or whatever that was over there, but then you're like, do you guys see that? It's walking right towards us.
Yes, and then we walked towards the tree that it was by, and there was nothing there. It was so awesome.
Yeah, and I was thinking, okay, maybe this was a naval person because they, back in the day especially, would wear those white suits with the white hat. So I was like, maybe there's like a naval guy over there or something, because you do hear about like the lady in white and different things like that going on, but not generally do you hear about a man in white, in a white uniform. So I was thinking this has to be a naval guy. Sorry, Cheyenne's being driven around by Randall, and Randall's feeling it tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went over there and we checked it out, and we did find a tombstone.
Live on the air.
Doing what?
She is doing her show because it's the weekend.
Okay, so
Everybody across the world can hear you, Randall.
Cool. Well, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, Randall.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Randall.
No, but we did look over there, and it was crazy. We did find a Navy tombstone, a military tombstone, in a regular cemetery. So that was awesome.
Yes.
So it was weird. Okay,
What was
so
really
go ahead.
creepy was seeing the graves that have been there since like the 40s, and it was new dirt laid over them.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier in the show, how we were walking around and there was a lot of fresh dirt. And at first we noticed the fresh mounds, and we're like, oh man, because it looked like a family of like 4 or 5 people. And we're like, oh man, that's so tragic. And then we look at the headstones, and they had all passed at different times. So that took away like the freakiness of it, really. It was just, I think, people weeding. And the really interesting thing to me was that Nova had seen that lady from the very beginning coming in, and that she was bending over and pulling things out of the ground. So it looked like she was weeding herself. And then when we went back to look, there was no tombstone. So maybe they're fixing their tombstones and they'll place them later, because they have been doing that throughout time, like putting the basically their initials on it. There'll be no date or anything like that, but initials.
Yeah.
That was
She was
cool.
in Legacy.
Okay, so then we went to Lightner Creek after that, and we were trying to get a hold of Chrissy to see if she would communicate. And I was saying earlier, when we were trying to go there earlier, that right after she passed, I tried to get a hold of her and she was not coming through. And I figured it's because she was so freshly passed, or due to the fact that she might be with her kids instead of being there on that location. So what did you pick up? I saw you taking pictures of the Paranormal Puck answers. What did you pick up from Chrissy?
Well, I had asked Crystal if she was at peace, and the response that I got was hugs. And then the next time I asked, she told me night. And that's how she used to put me to sleep. She would never tell me good night. She would just tell me night.
Aww. That is awesome.
So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is super cool. Oh my gosh, I wish I would have seen that, but at the same time, I didn't want
asked
to
if
feel
she
like
was
I was
near.
looking over your shoulder, you know? I was letting you have your own experience.
Oh, yeah. And then I had asked if she was near, and it said reverse. So I was like, maybe she's behind us.
Yeah, that is interesting. Are you near reverse? So maybe she was like in the back seat with the kids. It was funny because at first it was just you and I and Nova, and then Michaela and Michael live right across the way. So if you're ever bored, go over there and hit those guys up because they're super cool. Michaela is our niece, and so she's like your cousin. But yeah, it was interesting to have them there. And then that box said Michael, and then Michaela kept trying to get it to say Michael again because it really freaked him out. But that was kind of like a funny part of the evening, I thought.
That was funny.
Yeah. And Nova said his eyes got like so big. He was so freaked out by it. And every time she's like, say Michael. Would you say the name Michael? And he's like, ooh. I guess later on that night, they ended up like downloading some sort of app or whatever, and it kept saying some really messed up stuff about their roommate and like past roommates there, and something about drowning. It's kind of freaky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, what does that mean? I'm scared to know.
Yeah.
We actually drove through that park because the same week that Chrissy was murdered by her husband, there was another guy murdered over a drug deal. Like somebody came, it wasn't a drug deal, they came to steal his weed. And they didn't think he would be home, so when they found him there, they shot him, right?
Yes.
So those two trials were happening at the same time. It was really crazy. But that park, I think, is kind of like Vallecito, where there's some sort of indigenous or ancestral curse.
That we turned around in front of, where I told you I looked like there was somebody sitting inside of the car, but there was nobody there.
That was the one.
That's the trailer. That is the trailer.
Yeah, that's what I said last night. I think that's the trailer, or it could be the one next to it, but I think it's that one at the very end.
Yes, I asked.
I know, and I'm getting goosebumps right now. I'm like, holy shit. Like,
I want Uncle
I
Vern
kept
to
seeing him
take us to
flashing.
that ghost town, though.
Me too. And I hope he can remember it, but I was like, where is it? And I even looked it up on Google, and it's not there. So I don't know where the frack it is. It was called Siemens Switchback. So the switchback sort of thing is like a railroad term. But yeah, it's out there somewhere. If we can't find that one, we got to do the one above Vallecito, Tuckertown.
Yeah.
So is there, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything like paranormal you want to share, like that you experienced last night, or any sort of feelings, or did you get your hair raised at any point, or anything like that?
No, not really. Not till we were talking to Crystal. Then I started to feel like a little bit more secured in the area. So weirded out anymore.
Yeah, you don't feel so weirded out. Well, to me, it was interesting.
I feel like maybe I got a little closure.
Closure? That is awesome. That is one of the main things that I work towards. And sometimes it's not closure, but you get answers, right? And so the answers help you to move on. Not that you won't hurt anymore over it. You'll always have that in your heart, but you have answers and you can move like further down the line and grow in different ways. But yeah, I felt bad because I was like, man, like I was waiting to hear her voice, but sometimes other spirits will say things for people.
I got you.
As well as country music kept coming through, and we used to go to the Wild Horse Saloon, and that's where we would boogie woogie and dance our asses off. Last time I spent time with her at the Wild Horse was for her birthday, and that's what we do every year is go to the Wild Horse and dance. She was my dance partner, but she was your dance partner too when I wasn't there, right?
Yes, we went there a couple times. That's why next time I come down, I was like, I want to go over there.
I think we should definitely do that, and we should have a chair. And it kind of caught me off guard when you were asking me what was her favorite flower and what was her favorite color. I keep thinking lilies because, like I said last night, when I did that garden that I shaped into a heart and I lined it with crystals, and then I planted lilies in it, and I try to get pink ones, but you can't always order a specific color you need, especially today. But I got lilies. Some were pink and some were kind of orangish pink and spotted. I think one was like a kiss me lily, but I planted those. So I think lilies were her favorite.
No.
And when you asked me about the color, I kept seeing her standing there wearing a pink blouse or pink shirt. So I'm pretty sure that pink was her favorite color. But oh my gosh, I used to ask my dad that, you know, what was my mom's favorite this or my mom's favorite color, and he just could not tell me because he was still kind of hurt by it.
Yeah.
Well, I had a good time, and it felt like it lasted forever. It's like,
I know. I got inside of it, Cheryl, that I got the message from you saying that you were there. So I was like, oh, wow. Like, we were out there for quite a while.
I know we left it around 7, got to Anima City Museum around that time. It seemed like time really kind of stood still for a while, and that was about 7:10 when we made it to the cemetery out there. We were driving around for much longer than that. I was blown away because I spent about $30 in gas last night using Kenzie's vehicle. I was like, holy shit, I wish I had my Subaru. But it was awesome just driving the back roads, and I'm like, secretly, I'm hoping that something creepy happens. Like, we see some sort of apparition or something on the side of the road. We just kept seeing deer.
I know.
So when you come back, would you like to go back to Florida Cemetery? Because I want to sit there and try to talk to that lady that was weeding, and I definitely want to go back to that cowboy's tombstone. So I told them what I remembered of what it said.
Awesome.
Yeah, could you tell them what you remember his tombstone said and how that whole situation made you feel?
So my cousin Nova found a headstone and walked to it and started touching it. There was a hat mounted to it and some cowboy boots. And she walked over to it and she touched it and she's like, whoa, it looks like their ashes are here. And there was dust on her fingers. So we kept
she's like,
reading
now I have ashes on my fingers.
Sharon, where's the $20 go? Mom sent me this way?
Mom didn't send me 20. She sent me 10.
She said she sent 20.
She sent me 10.
Okay.
Anyway, his tombstone read,
Anyways.
when I die, don't bury me. Just tan my hide and make it into a lovely lady.
A
The lovely
lady
saddle. Then throughout eternity, I'll be between the two things I love best in the world. A saddle and a beautiful girl.
It was a horse and a beautiful lady.
Yes.
He's like, my two favorite things in the world, a beautiful lady and a horse. And I was like, oh my God, this guy. And then I'm pretty sure it was his brother, buried right next to him, right? What did you pick up on that?
I have enough, okay? I have enough.
I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to the other one next to it.
Stop trying to talk over me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you like this.
Is that Randall yelling at you? Oh my gosh. Oh, it's not that she was trying to talk over Randall, but she was just trying to talk to us, and we let him know we were on a show. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna kick his ass when I see him. I have to put this in caps. So Randall drove her down to Farmington today to, oh my goodness, to be there for her twin nephew's birthday party. No wonder this guy is divorced, like the way he is not only talking to his mother, but talking to his cousin, which is my niece. Oh my gosh. Next time I see Randall, I'm either going to kick him straight off in the ass or ass and balls combo, because that is unacceptable to me. How can you, oh my gosh, how can you talk to somebody like that? I'm sorry, you guys, that you had to hear that. Wow. Hold on, Rash. Toothless is in the backyard again. He's like, let me in. Right now. I know, ma'am, letting him know. Let you in from the back. Go to the porch, please. I know, ma'am. Go on, ma'am. Holy shnikes. Man, my heart just hurts right now for Cheyenne and for him acting that way. Ew. That is not acceptable. Alright, so if you guys have any sort of stories, let me see if my friend got back to me over here. And if you have a ghost story or experience you would like to share, please call me right now at 970-335-9596. And I guess just recently they added a new area code. Therefore, you must dial the 1 before the area code. So, call 1-970-335-9596. Wow. Man, my heart just hurts really bad right now about what just happened. That was not cool. Alrighty, so let me reach over here. Let's see how many pages we have left here, because we have about... Let me get this out of the way. Clicka. Holy shnikes. It's saying an hour and 48 minutes. What the hell is actually happening here? Alright, so... Floyd is calling the kitty. Aww. Toothless, at first, I thought was a female cat. I went to the dollar store, and this lady was holding this cutest little black cat. And I was just like, that is a cute black cat you got there, helping you check out all these groceries and stuff. And she's like, yeah, I was just sitting here doing my job, and all of a sudden he just walked in and been helping me do my job, and I'm just waiting for somebody to come in looking for him. And I was like, well, I'll take him home, and I will, oh, Floyd's out there, Toothless, meow, meow. Okay, so I originally named this cat Dollar Store Dolly, because I found her at the dollar store. And then, you know, he became a man. Then I realized this is not a female cat, but a male cat. So then named him Jade, and then eventually we settled on the name of Toothless, because he reminds us a lot of Toothless the dragon from the dragon cartoon from Disney, I believe it is. But yeah, when you see him in the light, he looks like a dark chocolate tabby. So he's got dark chocolate, and then he has black stripes going throughout and down him, and he is just beautiful. He used to be one of my lovey cats, and then Shadow, I don't know if it was a dog that got her, or if she got snagged on the fence, but she had this cut on her, and oh my gosh, it was pretty gross for a while, and then eventually it started to heal up, but after that, he was just like, I want nothing to do with you. You didn't pay any attention to me during this time, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to let you go. looking at the story. Looks like we have quite a ways to go. Many, many pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2. 12 pages. Supernormal or supernatural is the name of this chapter. Ooh. And the chapter is called Strange World of Dreams. So ever since his point of origin and prehistory, man has been a dreamer. There seems little doubt that this awareness of a phantom self, which became active during sleep and sometimes even when awake, produced the first concept of a soul and the various associated religious beliefs, pagan or otherwise. This soul or ghost was something quite separate from the normal human body. Indeed, it could leave the body during dreams and perhaps survive the ultimate blackness of physical death. Thus, as Sir James Frazer mentions in The Golden Bough, if life is explained by the soul's presence in the body, then sleep becomes the temporary absence of the soul and death its permanent absence. One of mankind's oldest beliefs is that dreams can foretell the future, and in ancient world, the Assyrians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Jews, for example, believed that dreams were messages from the deities indicating the future. The Bible is a prolific source of dreams, especially the Old Testament, while the New Testament also has its share of prophetic dreams. Thus, in St. Matthew's Gospel, Joseph is told in a dream that his wife is pregnant, and later the life of the Holy Child is twice saved because of visions of the night. Seers were important people. It was for them to translate the obscure imagery of most dreams into understandable prophecies. Such interpretations were later set down in writing to form the original dream books, for which astrology there is a steady vogue even today. Thus, according to one such book, to a dream of a fire signifies the arrival of hasty news. Provision in dreams, nevertheless, its serious side, and a multitude of well-documented records are held by the Society of Psychical Research in the London and American equivalent in New York, though whether such provisions come under the headings of telepathy, clairvoyance, or extrasensory perception in general is a matter of debate. With the increase in materialism in the later years of the 19th century, the mystical attributes of dreams became subject to more and more skepticism until, finally, at the beginning of the 20th century, the whole question of the interpretation of dreams was revolutionized by Sigmund Freud. Freud, a professor of neurology at Vienna University, specialized in the treatment of hysteria and neurosis, and it was the publication of his book, Die Traumdeutung, or Dream Interpretation, in 1900, with its emphasis on sexual symbolism, which indicated to the medical world that the extent to which dream analysis had become a foundation stone of his psychological techniques, or psychoanalytical techniques, partly because his ideas outraged the public morality of the day, and partly because he had elevated the dream to the stature of a science. He was subject to a storm of skepticism and ridicule, as are so many innovators. Nevertheless, his ideas persisted, and other psychologists began to regard dreams seriously and scientifically, while rejecting the cryptic sex imagery which dominated Freud's own theories. Today, Freud is respected for his pioneering work, and his influence persists, although the sexual aspects of psychoanalysis have been largely discounted. And I wonder, because of his earlier works, a lot of that stuff was sexually given away to where they didn't have to worry about those things. During the past decade, the dream has moved into the world's electronics laboratories, where scientists using electroencephalographic techniques can now tell those who are interested the frequency and duration of dreams by measuring brain waveforms and eye movements of sleepers. For the record, sleep is cyclic in nature, taking the form of long waves lasting an hour or more, descending deeply into unconsciousness, then surfacing to near consciousness. The deepest sleep wave is the first one, the rest becoming progressively shallower throughout the night. It is at the crest of each wave that dreaming takes place, and such dreams may last from 10 minutes to half an hour. As 4 or 5 waves occur during undisturbed sleep, we each experience 4 or 5 dreams throughout the night. Indeed, some 20% of our sleeping life is spent dreaming. So far, so good. But meanwhile, the question of prevision or foreseeing the future has fallen by the wayside. Perhaps it is regarded as unscientific. Nor do we know, even today, precisely what dreams are, where the images come from, how they are blended and integrated, and, indeed, why we should dream at all and spend so much time in this apparently irrational and pointless activity when our waking lives are busy enough. I think it all has to do with the subconscious and different things we have to deal with. Moving right along, all of which brings us to the work of J.W. Dunne, a highly original theorist and experimenter who alone devoted much of his life to the practical analysis of dreams and prevision, and in so doing inadvertently created a new science of time, space, and consciousness, which he named serialism, and which, when first published in the 1920s, created quite a sensation. Today, in retrospect, alas, his remarkable efforts have been sadly overlooked and no longer appear to carry any weight, a feeling which is difficult to understand since set up positive indicators to mass experience which could be easily carried out to check the validity of his conclusions. Dunne was an engineer, or is it Dunne? It's D-U-N-N-E. I want to say Dunne. Could be Dunne, but I'm saying Dunne. Was an engineer, actually an aircraft designer in the very early days of aviation, so that, not being a professional psychologist or acknowledged philosopher, he was perhaps taken less seriously than his work merited. Additionally, his theory of serialism came into conflict with the accepted scientific methodology of the day in a world which was struggling to comprehend Einsteinian relativity and other new concepts of physics. He wrote 4 books, the first of which was entitled An Experiment with Time, and gave many lectures. Hold on, gotta look at my fingers to change this page. And gave many lectures. Where was I? On his controversial subject, which began with experimental proof of prevision in dreams and ended with evidence of immorality and the existence of a universal spirit or God, which animates all living matter, but all couched in the language of mathematics and science, and not a word about religion or mysticism. It began with Dunne, accepting that some recorded dreams were acceptably prophetic, questioned the abnormality of such prevision. Why should it be the prerogative of a privileged few? Suppose it were a normal function of the dreaming brain unrecognized by the multitude who, in any case, invariably forget their dreams within a few seconds of awakening. He decided that dreams might consist of a blend of past and future events and set out to devise a practical experiment to check such a strange hypothesis, using himself as a subject and unaware initially of the arduous nature of the task he was to undertake. Even Dunne himself concedes that the task which had to be accomplished was isolating a single basic fact from an accumulation of misleading material. Any account of any such process must contain, of course, some description of the stuff from which the separation was effected. And such stuff very often is, and in this case very largely was, rubbish. In his first book, Dune relates a considerable number of dreams, some of undoubted provision significance, others less so. He also ran into certain practical difficulties which he described in detail. In the space available here, it is not possible to outline every dream, but the more important ones are summarized, and the reader may, if he wishes, refer to an experiment with time for the full narrative. It is available in libraries. Dune, incidentally, as an engineer and mathematician, always evaluated the probability factor of what might appear to be provision in a dream. Thus, to dream of a relatively commonplace event could be described to coincidence and would carry low or zero provision probability. To qualify a dream related to any similar event in the past. To qualify a dream would need to be of an unusual character and, very important, unrelated to any similar event in the past. The constraints imposed were therefore quite formidable. The first two incidents were not quite of the nature one might look for, though they fit well into what later took shape as Dune's explanatory theory involving serialism. The first occurred in 1899 while staying at a hotel in Sussex. The dream was of an argument with a writer as to the correct time, Dew asserting that it was 4:30 in the afternoon and the waiter insisting that it was 4:30 in the middle of the night. With the apparent illogicality peculiar to all dreams, the dreaming Dune concluded that his watch must have stopped, and on checking it, found that this was so, and it had stopped at precisely 4:30. He assumed that the watch must have stopped on the previous afternoon. Anyway, he had failed to notice or had forgotten. Not knowing the exact time, he merely rewound the watch, leaving the hands as they were. The following morning, he checked the time by the nearest hotel clock, fully expecting the watch to be out by several hours, but to my absolute amazement, I found that the hands had lost only some 2 or 3 minutes, about the amount of time which had elapsed between my waking from a dream and rewinding the watch. How, then, did he come to see in that dream that the hands stood, as they actually did, at 4:30? The incident was trivial enough and could perhaps be attributed to some form of clairvoyance, seeing across space through darkness and closed eyelids. But Dune was in no sense a seer. Some time later, in Sorrento, Italy, lying in bed half awake beneath a mosquito net and wondering what the time might be, he idly tried to repeat the effect. He continues, "A moment later, I found myself looking at the watch. The vision I saw was binocular, upright, poised in a space about a foot from my nose, illumined by ordinary daylight and encircled by a thick whitish mist, which filled the remainder of the field of sight. The hour hand stood at exactly 8 o'clock. The minute hand was wavering between 12 and 1. The 1 hand was a formless blur. To look more intently would, I felt, wake me completely, so I made up my mind to treat the minute hand as one treats the needle of a prismatic compass, and to divide the arc of its swing. This gave the time as 2.5 minutes past 8. That decided, I opened my eyes, reached out under the mosquito curtain, grabbed the watch, pulled it in, and held it up before me. I was wide awake, and the hand stood at 2.5 minutes past 8. Dune then lists a number of dreams experienced over a period of years which foresaw future events of a unique nature, thereby rating a high probability factor in terms of provision. One was the arrival of the Daily Telegraph-sponsored Cape to Cairo expedition at Khartoum, one of the white members of the party having died en route. The story appeared in full in the issue of the Telegraph on the day following the dream, the death of one of its members having been unknown up to the point due to poor communications. The year was 1901. Others included a provision of the volcanic disaster in the West Indies island of Martinique, with a loss of 40,000 lives. In the dream, the figure was 4,000. A big fire in a rubber factory near Paris in which many female staff were suffocated before they could be rescued. The derailment of the Flying Scotsman on the embankment near the Fort Bridge in 1914, and various dreams of a personal nature selected from a group of about 20 which had been carefully remembered. So far, Dune had largely been relying on memory. Many of the dreams concerned events of trivial nature, the provision occurring merely a day or two before the reality. Dune himself observes, "These dreams were not percepts of distant or future events. They were the usual commonplace dreams composed of distorted images of waking experience, built together in the usual half-senseless fashion peculiar to dreams. That is to say, if they had happened on the nights after the corresponding events, they would have exhibited nothing in the smallest degree unusual, and would have yielded just as much true and just as much false, which had given rise to them, as does any ordinary dream, which is very little. They were the ordinary, appropriate, expectable dreams, but they were occurring on the wrong nights." He adds, "Even the watch dreams were merely the dreams I ought to have had after seeing the watch. No, there was nothing unusual in any of these dreams as dreams. They were merely displaced in time. That, of course, was staggering enough, but I felt nevertheless that it had been a great advance to resolve all these varied phenomena into one single class of incident, a simple if mysterious transposition of dates. But in all this speculation, I was still a long way from the truth." So far, Dune had been relying on memory, working on an ad hoc basis in which he describes as hopelessly unscientific fashion. It was not until 1917 that he posed the question, was it possible that these phenomena were not abnormal but normal? That dreams in general, all dreams, everybody's dreams, were composed of images of past experience and images of future experience blended together in approximately equal proportions. That the universe was, after all, really stretched out in time, and that the lopsided view we had of it, a view that the future part unaccountably missing, cut off from the growing past, part by traveling present moment, was due to a purely mentally imposed barrier which existed only when we were awake. So that, in reality, the associational work or network stretched, not merely this way and that way in space, but also backwards and forwards in time, and the dreamer's attention, following in natural and hindered fashion an easiest pathway along the ramifications, would be continually crossing and recrossing that properly non-existent equator which we, waking, ruled quite arbitrarily athwart the whole. The supposition, for it was not as a possible explanation, was immediately rejected by Dune, for it seemed to him absolutely inconceivable that a thing of this sort, if true, could have managed to escape, through all these centuries, universal perception and recognition. The seed that had nevertheless struck and began to germinate, it was the starting point of the true scientific experiment, with its rigid and tiring disciplines, and the beginning of a new theory of time and space, which was to take Dune much further than merely establishing the normal nature of provisional dreaming. Indeed, into these esoteric areas normally considered the province of theologists and mystics. A year went by before any practical steps were taken. Dune recognized that dreams were only too easily forgotten. 9 mornings out of 10, there would be no recollection of having dreamed at all because one forgets the dreams at the very instant of waking, and even the details of remembered dream will generally not survive the time taken to wash and dress. It was therefore necessary to write down a remembered dream immediately on waking, recording as much detail as possible, and to establish a method of recalling the more elusive forgotten dreams. Furthermore, since this was to be a daily routine of recording and retrospective checking, a time limit was considered desirable. Dune set this at 2 days, with a proviso that it might be extended in a ratio to the oddity and unusualness of a given incident. He cites one instance of a prophetic dream which occurred 20 years before the waking event. Another factor was the nature of one's life and work. A dull, monotonous life with every day exactly like last would hardly be likely to produce identifiable provision in the short term. Variety and change offered much better odds. In practice, Dune found that such simple matters as a visit to a theater or cinema, or even reading a novel, could prove to be a lucrative source of advanced dreaming data. Also, one had also to guard against mere coincidence, i.e., low provision probability. That the experiment proved to be a success goes without saying. Otherwise, Dune's books would never have been written. To prove that there was nothing abnormal or sensitive about himself, he was able to persuade friends and colleagues to try to experiment for a period. The results were generally comparable. There were snags, however. Most of the foreseen events were of such a trivial nature that one might well disregard them. Also, the dreaming mind is a master hand at tacking false interpretations onto everything it perceives. For this reason, the record of the dream should describe as separate facts: A, the actual appearance of what is seen, and B, the interpretation given to that appearance. Thus, in one example, the waking events of a dense shower of brilliant sparks produced by blowing a red-hot wood fire with a pair of bellows was previewed in a dream as a crowd of people throwing cigarette ends. Finally, Dune found in practice that the waking mind refuses point-blank to accept the association between the dream and the subsequent event, for the association is the wrong way round, and no sooner does it make itself perceived than it is instantly rejected. The intellectual revolt is automatic and extremely powerful. This is understandable because there is no conscious memory of a future event as opposed to a past event with which a dream can be readily linked. Even when checking written records after the 2-day time limit, one is apt to read straight on through the very thing one is looking for, without even noticing its connection with the waking incident. There is an unacceptable lack of cause and effect. I was just looking at the time and we're at 3 hours and 2 minutes. So I think I might read these next 3 paragraphs, and then I think I shall put my bookmarker in right here. Right there. Clergy. So, one way of overcoming this rejection is to pretend that the records you are about to read are those of dreams which you are going to have during the coming night, and then to look for events in the past day or two which might legitimately be regarded as the causes of those dreams. This is a device which Dune found most useful. The dodge for recalling forgotten dreams is quite simple, he states. A notebook and pencil is kept under the pillow, and immediately on waking, before you even open your eyes, you set yourself to remember any detail, however tiny, of the rapidly vanishing dream. Ignore the rest and concentrate on that simple point of detail, attempting to amplify it. Like a flash, a large section of dream in which that incident occurred comes back, and, more important, usually an isolated incident from a provision, dream or dreams. Write them down briefly, then concentrate on them one by one. Most of the dream stories will unfold themselves gradually. Write them down and do not attempt to simply remember them. Finally, take the abbreviated record thus made and write it out in full. Dune stresses, however, that the whole of the practical experiment is a fatiguing chore, so that one is inclined to give up after the first couple of days. With persistence and discipline, it becomes easier over a period of time. Even so, it explains why the experiment has never been widely taken up. For most of us, life is busy enough with the day-to-day practical problems to allow for a regular long-term essay in dream recollection and recording immediately on waking from sleep. In latter mass experiments, Dune took this factor into account and did not demand too much dedication from his cooperatives and his subjects. So then there's a star. That's where we'll leave off. That's where I got my bookmarker. Every time we finish, I'm like, we're going to finish it next time. Had we had the full 3 hours reading this book, we would be done with it by now, but we brought in a few different benefactors to try to compose the show, and I still want to apologize to poor Miss Cheyenne that she had to deal with Randall acting like a total and fucking utter asshole. What a fucking jerk, dude. Anywho's, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here this evening and hanging out with us and listening to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's KPNL Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else beyond the Omniverse you are listening tonight. Tomorrow night, we have a special guest. Pretty sure we're going to have Snarky of Oz on, but it could be... Oh my gosh. Let me look. Let me look at my things here. Lindy Rayborn of, I believe, Mississippi. She's either in Mississippi or Louisiana. But she said she's going to come on tomorrow night because this whole weekend was totally unplanned, and Snarky was willing to come in as well as Lindy, so perhaps we'll have them both on. Have two beautiful ladies of the paranormal in the house this Saturday, 21st of November. I cannot wait. But I just want you guys to know and remember, don't forget that we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. If you'd like to join us on the Skype after party, just look me up on Spreaker under tessa.n.thomas30@gmail.com, and that's Tessa, Tessa. Or you can call us on your phone. You don't have to have Spreaker. You can call at 970-335-9596. I want to thank our musical sponsor, Mr. Roy Washington of Quest Nation. I also want to thank our Patreons, and volunteers, Mr. Jim Morris of the Scottish Isles, Del Elson, Kevin McDougall, and Miss Mia Savage. Until next time, you guys, nighty night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you, actually weekend, and I will see you here tomorrow night, same time, same place. Take care, my yous.